is INA, Issues and Answers, addressing the issues important to you and our community. And now, INA, Issues and Answers.
Good morning and welcome to the program we call Issues and Answers, our weekly public affairs program on the Omaha radio stations of NRG Media. Each week we tackle issues and talk to people who are involved in the community and people who do wonderful things to make our community a better place. The Food Bank for the Heartland is one of the organizations that has been instrumental in providing services of specific needs during the period of the COVID pandemic. Not that they haven't always done that. Especially now we are coming up on what they are recognizing as Hunger Action Month, the month of September here in the metropolitan area. And with us to discuss Hunger Action Month is an old friend and also the CEO, the president of the Food Bank for the Heartland, Brian Barks. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Neil. And it's old just in longevity, not in age, correct?
No, absolutely. The both of us are that
absolutely.
way. Yeah. You've been at the Food Bank now for quite a number of years.
12 years, and have been president and CEO for the last 3.
You've seen a lot of changes, but none probably as dramatic as the pandemic.
No question. Neil, I would say arguably our organization is 40 years old. This is the biggest food insecurity crisis that this organization has seen in the 40-year history. We saw the number of people seeking food assistance caused by the COVID-19 pandemic go through the roof to levels that we have not seen since data has been tracked. And what has made those numbers go up so high is people seeking food assistance for the very first time, who are negotiating how to seek food assistance and where to get it, made it and continues to make it extremely challenging.
Who are the people that are seeking food assistance now that maybe you didn't see before, demographically, sociologically? Who are these people?
It's all across the board. But what we do know is that primarily it was the lower wage earners who were hit very hard by the pandemic. People in the hospitality industry, those type of jobs, that the lower wage earners, that when you fall behind, you dig yourself a pretty big hole, and it's tough to get out of that hole. And so we see people of all walks of life, whether you're urban, rural, or remote. There's people who live in those landscapes that are food insecure.
When we say food insecure, can you define that term for me?
Yeah, simply put, it is not having enough resources to put a healthy meal on the table. And we see that, again, in all landscapes. You know, it's a misconception to believe that food insecurity is confined to one area of town or one particular city or community. It is all across Nebraska and western Iowa and the service area that we cover at Food Bank for the Heartland. And it's all across the country. What COVID-19 did was it exposed the food insecurity problem that we have in our country, but it made it worse.
You are in the business. You see peripherally everything that goes on around you. The general public doesn't. And what about the awareness of food insecurity and the levels of food insecurity that you're talking about? Do most of us even know about it?
Well, I think if there is a shining light out of the COVID-19 pandemic, is that it did elevate the awareness of food insecurity. It was a top of mind topic. It was we received a lot of publicity, great publicity, whether locally and nationally, in regards to the issues that people were facing. Saw the pictures of the long lines of cars that were lined up at food distribution events. One of the ones that I will never forget is a distribution event we did in Grand Island back in May of last year. It's an event that we hold each month that typically serves 400 households. This one served 1,000 households. They had to move it to Fonner Park. People started lining up at about 6 in the morning for a distribution event that started at 9:30. Those kind of events, those pictures, and those stories of those people who were lined up to get help is what elevated the awareness of food insecurity.
It seems almost impossible to believe that in the middle of Nebraska, the breadbasket of the nation, large agricultural and food production state, in 2021, we hear about all the great economic news. We see all the politicians pounding their chests about how wonderful things are here. How is this possible in a state like Nebraska at this time?
That's a really good question, Neil. And one of the things that we need to recognize in the state of Nebraska, which is richly blessed as God-blessed agricultural center of the country and arguably the globe, is that we do a good job of growing food that we don't use to feed ourselves. And so it is for, to feed our cows and pigs and whatnot to make them taste good. But one of the things we also need to recognize is that we saw this in following the Great Recession. During an economic recovery, food insecurity typically lags behind an economic recovery. And the reason why is simply to revert back to what I mentioned earlier. People who suffer during an economic downturn, typically lower wage earners, dig yourself a hole. It's tough to get out, and so therefore they kind of lag behind the economic recovery, and we're seeing that again. We're seeing on a larger scale very much what we saw following the Great Recession. The Great Recession, it took 10 years for the number of people who are food insecure, for those levels to drop to below pre-Great Recession levels. We anticipate that will happen again. The numbers went up very fast. They come down very slowly.
With regard to the resources available, one of the things we hear about, and another fact that is difficult to conceive of, the Omaha Public Schools say that 75% of their student body qualifies for free or reduced lunches. Mm-hmm. They feed lunches, they feed breakfasts, and many of that population comes to depend on the Omaha Public Schools for their daily meals. Is that unusual?
For our area, no, it is not. And there will be some schools within the district where those free and reduced numbers are in the 90s, if not 100%. So, no, that is not unusual.
When we look at these figures, we look at the things that are going on currently. What is the goal for Hunger Action Month, the month of September, here in the Metro with Food Bank for the Heartland? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Sure. What we do during the month of September is partner with Feeding America. Feeding America is a network of 200 food banks across the country. There are 2 in the state of Nebraska, us and the Food Bank of Lincoln. And what we are asking for is people to basically raise awareness to the millions of Americans and the tens of thousands in Nebraska and western Iowa who face the impossible choice of hunger. It takes place during the month of September, every September, and this one has a little bit more of a special meaning to it because of the challenges and issues and the number of people who are now have been thrust into that arena of needing food assistance. So in essence, it's 1 in 9 people, 1 in 6 being kids under the age of 18 who are struggling with food insecurity in our area. It's an awareness-raising month for us.
What about the resources available to assist you in assisting people who are having issues with food insecurity? Obviously, there's been a great deal of demand put on your capabilities. What have you done to kind of increase the ability to meet that demand?
Yeah, it's one of the greatest things about living in the part of the country that we do is that it is an incredibly generous and philanthropic community. I don't know of anywhere else in the country that gives back and is in the neighbor helping neighbor mode more than Nebraskans and Iowans. Right now, through January through August, our food bank has distributed roughly 25 million pounds worth of food. During that same time period a year ago, it was about 21.3 million pounds of food.
Okay, let's get a figure. Those are nice numbers. What does 21 million pounds of food actually look like?
So I don't have the math in front of me, but if the listeners are out there and want to, a meal, according to the USDA, is about 1.2 pounds. So you divide 25 million by 1.2, that's about how many meals we're talking about. So we're looking at about a 17% increase in the amount of food that we've distributed year over year during the pandemic. We cannot do that without the support that we've received from the community. And let me also couch it with this. The 25 million pounds that we've distributed from January through August is roughly what we were distributing pre-pandemic total for a year. So we've done that in about 8 months.
Now, when you talk about food distribution, are you talking about mostly to the uninitiated canned and boxed food? Are you talking fresh fruit, fresh meat? How does it work?
All of the above. The number one item that leaves our distribution center is fresh produce. Over 70% of the food that we distribute is what the USDA characterizes as foods to encourage. That would be produce, protein, and dairy. One of the things that has been an emphasis in the food banking world over the last several years is not so much how much food you're distributing, but what kind of food are you distributing? Because many times the people who are seeking food assistance also come with some type of health issue, whether it's diabetes or whatnot. And so we want to try to distribute as healthy a product as we possibly can. Now, with a heavy emphasis on produce, because and really when you think about produce, protein, and dairy, those are the most expensive items that you can find at the grocery store. And so if we can provide that to folks who need assistance, all better that we can stretch their food budget. Mm-hmm. But back to the amount of support that we've received from the community, it has been to the level that I never, ever in my wildest dreams ever thought that we would be able to do. The work that we've been able to do over the last 18 months could not have been done at all, period, end of story, without the generosity of the community at large.
Well, when you talk about the community at large, I'm sure you're talking philanthropic organizations, charitable organizations, but also part of the food supply network. And how does that work?
Absolutely. It is all of the above. It is the people who have the large means to contribute and help, to the folks who are just contributing, $5, $10, whatnot. Also on the side of the food donors as well, we have been supported greatly by some of the large manufacturers in the area, such as the ConAgras, the Tysons, the Cargills of the world, and so many numerous that are too many to mention. And one of the exciting things that we're doing at our food bank is a pilot project that we started in January. It's a state-of-the-art clean room. Essentially what this is we receive large quantities, bulk quantities of high-quality protein items, say a 600-pound box of frozen chicken. Impossible for one person to handle. But what we had been researching is that we had turned down about 7 out of every 10 trucks that were offered to us because we had no way of processing it. Well, with the help of Cargill and Feeding America, we established a pilot project in our facility of a clean room to take these bulk protein items, break them down into family-friendly sizes for distribution. And this project has worked wonderfully, and we want to scale the project. And we are excited to do so. It's a project where we have to have a USDA inspector come on site to monitor our process to make sure we're following food safety guidelines. And so we're really excited about the prospect of scaling this project to be able to accept more protein items. From what we understand, there's more of these kind of food availabilities in our service area than any other food bank in the country. Our end goal is to be able to not only serve this product to people in our service area, but to also be a processor for other food banks in the region as well.
What kind of capabilities did you have to add? And is this at your Omaha facility where you've done this?
Yes, it is. We've had to add special equipment. We had to get a special license from the USDA. I think we're one of maybe a handful of the 200 food banks that have this license to be able to handle this product. And so it's going to take more space, more infrastructure, more people in order for us to scale this project. We believe in it. As I mentioned, started in January. The results early are very, very good. And we have people that want to support us behind this. And so we're anxious to scale it.
Started with chicken. Are you expanding into other?
Yeah, it can be anything from like frozen meatloaf patties to sausage to chicken to really any type of a high quality protein item.
You mentioned the protein item particularly, and right now at this time, especially with beef and pork, prices are pretty much going nuts through the roof. Mm-hmm. Does that impact you as well?
Yeah, it does. We'll talk about inflation as a whole. What we've seen is about a 12% increase in inflation impacting some of our food lines. In a typical year, pre-COVID, our food bank will spend in the vicinity of about $80,000 a month buying food. Right now, budgeting through this fiscal year, which started in July, going into June of 2022, we were budgeting somewhere around $800,000 a month to spend on food. And some of those food items that we're spending on, yes, we've seen about a 12% inflation rate and about 30% when it comes to fuel.
That's got to be difficult in terms of using your resources to meet those kind of demands. Fiscally, what kind of shape are you in?
Yeah, that's a fiscal great question. First of all, one of the things we're going to do, we finished July and August, our first 2 months of our fiscal year. We're going to review our budget and see what this inflation, the implications in regards to what we projected to buy and distribute. And we're going to do that this month. As far as fiscally, I feel really good about our budget through the end of this calendar year, through December. I think where it's going to get really challenging is beginning in January of 2022 through the last 6 months of the fiscal year where things are going to get really tight. Look, we were purchasing food towards the May-June timeframe of about $1.5 million a month. We now knocked that down to about $800,000 because we've projected receiving more donated items, using more cost-effective vendors to purchase our food. But when I mentioned that we were spending it at $80,000 previously, the rate that we're doing right now is not sustainable. It's just not long-term sustainable. And so we're focusing on the clean room project where we can distribute food at a cost of about 95 cents a pound as opposed to buying that protein at a roughly $2 to $2.50 a pound. I mean, and when we're talking millions of pounds of food, that's a massive cost savings.
Adds up tremendously
Yes.
and very quickly. Brian Barks is the president, CEO of the Food Bank of the Heartland. In the midst of September Hunger Action Month, a lot going on. With regard to people helping, I'm sure it's really nice for people to drive by your location down in southwest Omaha and drop off a couple of cases of cans or a couple of cases of cereal, things like that. But that's not really what you need, is it?
No, it isn't. Obviously, we'll take it. We love it. It's great product. But the amount of product that comes to us that way does not even come close to moving the needle in regards to the total overall food that we distribute. Our need is greatly in the area of time, volunteer time, and also dollars. One of the things that our organization cannot do at all, we cannot operate without volunteer help. It became extremely challenging, and it's still extremely challenging during the pandemic. Typically, our volunteer center, we can accept up to 60 people per shift, but due to social distancing guidelines and safety and et cetera, we cut that number down to 30 per shift. So that impacts the amount of food that we can produce, because we have people who are putting pantry boxes together. Pantry boxes are 15 items in a box that it's distributed to various pantries or whatnot. Putting our backpack food together for elementary age school kids who are at risk for hunger, which is distributed to 260 different schools across Nebraska and western Iowa. So we have volunteers doing that. And we're constantly in the need of volunteer support, because, again, that food does not get distributed unless it's touched and packaged by volunteers. And then when it comes to dollars, and when we're spending upwards of $800,000 a month buying food, that tells you right there where the vast majority of our donated dollars are going to. We have just seen an exponential amount of growth in the amount of food that we are buying. It has become a big challenge for us, and so the donated dollar goes a long way. And if people and another thing that donated dollars does is it allows us to buy the food that we need. And so we can only take a can of donated green beans as far as that donated can of green beans can take us. But when it comes to the donated dollar, we're buying food by the semi, multiple semis. And we can buy it cheaper than you and I can at the grocery store. So that's why the donated dollar is the best way.
Is there government funding available to support what you folks are doing, either on the federal, state, county level?
We do get federal reimbursements for some of the programs that we do. So, for example, we distribute food from the USDA through the Emergency Food Assistance Program. We get cost reimbursements from the federal government for a portion of the cost of what it costs us to distribute that food. One of the things that was extremely helpful last fiscal year is we received roughly $11.5 million worth of CARES Act funding. We received about $8 million from the state of Nebraska, about $2.5 million from Douglas County, and the rest came from the state of Iowa. And the overwhelming vast majority of those dollars were used to purchase food for distribution. We also were able to utilize some of that funding to put additional racking within our warehouse in order to store the additional food that we needed. We used those dollars also for upgrading infrastructure within our facility, such as replacing freezer cooler doors, which just the sheer volume of forklifts going in and out of our freezer cooler, those doors broke down, and so we needed to replace those doors. And the number of sheer number of trucks that were showing up with food, our building just took a beating, and so we had to replace some items related to that.
With the name Food Bank for the Heartland, it's not just an Omaha organization. How wide an area do you service, and how effective are you in those areas?
Sure. Our mission field is 77 counties of Nebraska. We stretch all the way out to the Panhandle, out into Scotts Bluff. And then we have 16 counties in western Iowa that we serve. Basically, if you go along the Missouri River, 2 counties to the east, up and down the Missouri River, that's our service area. We have a partner in Sioux City, the Food Bank of Siouxland, that helps us distribute food in northwest Iowa. The Food Bank of Lincoln serves 16 counties in southeast Nebraska. Their area covers, I would say, Wahoo to the north, York and Seward to the west, down to Nebraska City, that area, Auburn, obviously the city of Lincoln. And we partner a lot with the Food Bank of Lincoln. Great food bank, but we do a lot of things together, whether it's joint fundraising, food distribution, things related to SNAP, food stamps. We do a lot with the Food Bank of Lincoln. Great food bank.
When we look at the demographics statewide, is there much of a rural-urban divide for the kind of people you're serving? And if so, how does that shake out?
You know what? Obviously, the volume, the heavy volume of people seeking food assistance is where the population is. It's in Douglas, Sarpy, Washington counties on the eastern side of Nebraska. But as you go out into rural communities, you know, what we've seen in rural communities is what we've seen in rural communities across the country. The job opportunities there are dwindling. The communities are getting older. And so that population is starting to need, and there's less opportunities to receive food assistance in rural communities. Because, I mean, let's think about it. You know, if you're in Omaha and you need help, there's multiple places you can go to receive that help. But if you're in Chadron, Brainerd, Loop City, there's not very many places that you can go unless your local church is providing help. So that's why serving rural communities is really, really challenging for us, because the need for food assistance is high, but the access to it is low.
Virtually everybody is having trouble finding workers. You're having trouble finding volunteers. If people are hearing this and saying, you know, I'd like to help, what kind of volunteers do you need, and how do they go about reaching out to you?
You know what? We try to make it as simple as possible. I would encourage people to go onto our website at foodbankheartland.org, and there's a volunteer tab, and you can click on that. And then it will take you to a page where you can see what times and days we have available. And you can sign up for a day that is a day and a time that is convenient for you. We have shifts Tuesday through Saturday. We have morning shifts from 9 to 11, afternoons 1 to 3:30. We have a Tuesday evening shift from 5 to 7, and our Saturday shift is only 9 to noon. And the volunteer center is closed on Mondays.
And I would imagine anybody interested in volunteering has to be aware of the fact that, yes, you are protecting your people and the volunteers as well, sanitizing and doing everything necessary.
Absolutely. And we are requiring our volunteers to wear masks regardless of vaccination status. And, you know, the one thing, some of the things that we have people doing, again, one of our distribution models and methods is to put together boxes of staple items into a box, about a 25-pound box, that is then distributed to whether it's a pantry or whatnot, putting together packages for our backpack program that bags of food that is designed for an elementary age school child, that's distributed to 260 different schools across the Nebraska and Iowa landscape. We distribute about 8,300 of these bags every single week during the school year. And we got to have volunteers to do that. And so I would really encourage people to come, sign up, and lend a helping hand, because we need it.
Dollars. How can people get dollars to you? And the small dollar amounts are just as important as the big dollars?
Absolutely, no question. We would encourage people, again, to go onto our website, foodbankheartland.org, click on the donate page and donate button, and you can make an online gift. Any size is welcome. You know, we have been so blessed by this community to allow us to do the work that we're doing. But this is going to be a really long haul, Neil. We're going to be in this for a long time. This problem hit us fast. It's going to take us a long time to get out.
September is Hunger Action Month. A lot going on, a lot to be accomplished, and you and your people, obviously, to be commended for the work you're doing. You're saving lives, bottom line, which is important.
You know, one of the things I'm so incredibly proud of is the staff that we have. For the last 18 months, our staff has been on the front lines serving and trying to meet this need. They've been working really, really hard. And like a lot of folks, they're tired. They're kind of beat up. But every day they show up dedicated to the mission and passionate about the work that they do. I am so proud of the work that they've done, and am so proud that the community has recognized the work that they're doing and is willing to step up and go shoulder to shoulder with us.
Much of that credit, of course, goes to the person at the top, the president, the CEO, Food Bank for the Heartland, Brian Barks. Congratulations, much success.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
This has been INA. Tune in next time to INA, Issues and Answers, an NRG Media production.